Have you found yourself wondering, is there something more? If so, then you, my friend, are a dreamer in waiting. I'd like to welcome you to the Dream On podcast. I'm Julia Gentry, and along with my husband, Travis Gentry, we discuss real, raw, and not small talk conversations about faith, family, entrepreneurship, and all the things that matter most in this life in order to help people bridge the gap between what they currently have and what they really want most. Join us as we give you insights, tools, and strategy to chase every dream that's on the inside of you. But be forewarned, this podcast is not for the faint of heart, but rather those of heart. This is the Dream On podcast. Welcome to another Dream On podcast. I am the hostess with the mostest, Julia Gentry. And today I have my partner.
A guest on the show, Travis Gentry.
So good to have you here.
Oh, thank you for inviting me.
I'm really glad to be having this conversation with you today.
Yeah, me too. I'm just really excited to be here with you.
Have you ever wondered? People say that all the time. I'm just so excited. Is that just a filler?
Oh, for sure.
I hate it now. I notice it all the time. People say this on Instagram videos, promo videos, conferences, workshops, on today's podcast. We are so excited. Like, what were we supposed to say? I really am not looking forward to this at all today. I don't want to be here. This feels inauthentic, and I'm just glad that you're talking and not me. Like, what are we
Well, yeah. We could go down the rabbit hole on that one.
So today we are excited, and the reason we're excited is because we're talking about we're going to talk about 2023, ready or not. So whether you're listening to this when it drops mid-December or you're listening to this in February of 2023, we really think that this episode is going to be extremely valuable, not just as you consider the new year, but as you're living the next year.
Buckle up, Buttercup. Get ready.
Get ready.
Because 2023 is going to be a new, exciting, different year.
So good.
No matter what. And if some of the things that we are seeing that are happening now don't come to fruition, it's still going to be a new year, an exciting year.
Well, and I think part of why it's important to be having this conversation today on our podcast is for many reasons. Number one, this is generally the time of year that people are setting New Year's resolutions and goals and thinking about the new year and setting intentions. And actually, when you lean in, it's really pathetic how horribly we do this to people.
We're just going to be real and honest as much as possible today.
Because here's the actual facts. Is that only 49% of people will set a New Year's resolution, which means 51% of people don't even do it. They don't have a goal. They don't have a New Year's resolution. There's no mantra. So of you 49% that are actually going to do this, 80% of you have quit by February, mid-month, 80%. And only 9% of the 49% actually will see their goals and New Year's through the end of the year.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I mean, being in the fitness industry a long time ago, I would see that, whether it was gym memberships or fitness equipment, like it was, that was the best time of the whole year.
Totally.
People gung-ho, ready. I don't know what happens on January 1st. But all of a sudden, people are like, I'm going to wait until that day this year, then I'm gonna take action. As opposed to saying, like, we're in November now, like, as opposed to saying maybe December 1st or Monday or tomorrow
or now
or right now. I'm gonna stop doing what I know it should be.
Okay, so here's why though, because I actually started to kind of loop this and look at my own life, right? Like we're not just here to judge everybody, though we will do a good job of that today. The idea here is that I think what happens for a lot of people is that when I go to set a New Year's resolution or I think about the new year, how to prepare, or all of these things, the moment actually does make me feel good, right? Because I'm thinking about, I'm going to lose the 30 pounds, I'm going to write the book, I'm going to start the business, I'm going to do the things. And as you're actually considering these goals, you're like, this feels good. I feel like I'm on cloud 9 already. I'm feeling the momentum of achievement. Like I'm actually like, man, I think I'm 30 pounds lighter just thinking about it. And then you actually start to do all of those things and you realize that these goals are not designed to make me feel good.
They're simple.
They're simple.
But they're hard.
And they're hard and they don't feel good, and losing the weight and writing the book. And so I think, speaking to those of us who are not huge New Year's goals resolution people, or let's think of a mantra for the new year, like, I get it, right? Like, I really understand how hard that can be. Doesn't mean that it doesn't work. Doesn't mean that goals aren't important and that vision isn't important. However, we're not talking about that today.
But can I give an example? We've done that, and we did it with alcohol.
Yeah.
And it would always be, we'll stop drinking on Monday or on the 1st or after the holidays. And it took some time, years, for us to truly commit to it.
Yeah.
Because knowing we would go a week, a month, 3 months, I think, at a time and not drink. And then you slowly go back and you're like, well, just once, or this party's coming up, so I'll do it until then, which you already set yourself up for failure at that point. And so we've experienced that in our own life. So as we joke around and have fun with some of these things, it is real, and it is, we 100% understand.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing for us with the drinking. And it took years for us to actually commit to it, because it's so prevalent in the world around us.
Totally. So here's what today's podcast is not about. Today is not about helping you come up with better goals for 2023. It is not your typical, right, like, let's set a vision and mantra for the new year that just makes us feel good. Today we're actually going to get down into the weeds a little bit. We're going to jump into the deep end of the pool, if you will. And we are going to talk a little bit about our perspective as we consider 2023. And I think you and I have really put a lot of time and attention into understanding mentally, emotionally, and tactically what's going on in the world around us. You've taken your lane, I've taken mine. So I am excited. I will speak to that. I am excited to talk about that, because I think we're both bringing two different lanes to this conversation around how we as people need to be thinking about 2023.
Yeah, and some of the things that we see happening now that will affect, we believe, 2023. And give us the analogy that we were talking about, because I think it sets up the conversation from the beginning to the end.
For sure. So no matter where you are today in regards to what you think of 2023, I think all of us could already start to feel a little bit, depending on what industry we're in, like, oh, we can sense that things are happening. There's others that are like, I don't understand the question. What are we talking about here? I'm not aware of anything. And so regardless of what, your potential position is right now in 2023, what Travis and I are considering this next year to look like is a wave. And what we're talking about is a wave of the ocean, right? Which, in theory, the best analogy for this is in the movie Soul Surfer, which is our kids' favorite movie. And in fact, the only part that they really love to watch is the shark attack. And this is a movie about Bethany Hamilton, which, if you know the movie, she's a surfer, and she's the one that gets her arm bit off, and then it's her story to basically healing mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and getting on the board and riding again. Anyways, there's a scene towards the end as she has repositioned herself and she wants to be a surfer again with one arm, mind you, and she's out and they're competing, and there's I think they've got 30 seconds on the clock, and basically someone needs to catch a wave in order to win. And all of the surfers are lined up, and Bethany has to catch this wave, and everybody on the sidelines is like, there's no more waves. She's not going to win. There's no way. All of a sudden they see Bethany the video shows her, she's got her hand on the ocean waves, and her dad says she senses something. She feels something. And she starts paddling beyond where you're going to catch a wave. Gives me goosebumps thinking about it.
I was just thinking that. I'm like, man.
I have goosebumps. And so now the audience is watching this girl go way past where she quote unquote should be. They see nothing. Bethany doesn't even see anything, but she's super connected and can feel that something is coming. Long story short, she positions herself to ride the wave that didn't land where everybody thought it was going to land. It came up way further out, but she caught the wave because she could feel it and was able to ride it, which implied the people who were where they thought the wave was going to be were too late. right? They were too late to catch the wave. And so today what we're going to be talking about is the wave, right? There is a wave coming, and we will both speak to different perspectives of, we can feel it, we can sense it, and you're going to speak to a ton of legit tactics around it's coming. But we're going to speak a little bit about this wave, and then we're also going to talk about how to ride the wave and how to position yourself, as Bethany Hamilton did, to catch the wave as opposed to being under the wave, which implies
or missing the wave.
Yeah.
Like you could either get clobbered by the wave, you can miss the wave, or you can ride the wave.
Yep.
And so that also looks like you're not necessarily doing what everybody else is doing. And so I think for me, so just giving what I'm seeing right now, and for anybody that doesn't know our backstory, we've been in real estate for the last 10 years. And we got in 2008 when the market was, at the bottom. And so we now looking back, and what we've seen over the last couple years is historic in a sense of the prices and how high and how quick they have jumped over the last couple years. Interest rates low, the 2020, everything that has happened. And now we're starting to see another shift. And so what I'm seeing right now, and some of this you may have heard about, or some of it is, it's really like a puzzle, and there's different pieces. And once you connect the pieces and you actually look at it in frame, you're like, this is not great.
This is not normal.
Something's going on. Something is going on. And so some of the things that we're hearing or seeing right now is, the student loan just got extended again for people on their student loans not having to make payments. Again, that gets kicked down the road a little bit longer. It started in 2020, and they keep saying it was gonna, I think, take effect again, where people would have to make their loan payments in January. That just got postponed again because the whole process of Biden trying to pass a bill, and there again, don't care what side you're on, but passing a bill to forgive a certain amount, $10,000 a student loan per individual. And there's different stipulations that go along with that. Well, that's getting caught up in court now. And so they're extending those payments.
So what is that? And maybe I'm jumping ahead too much, but what does that tell us about what could potentially be coming? Yeah,
so let me give you a couple more examples.
Okay.
So credit card debt in the US hits an all-time high, $930 billion. Auto repossessions are on the rise substantially. And so inflation is at an all-time, a 40-year high. Fed increasing the interest rates at historic rate, basically, as far as how fast. In the 80s, when we had high inflation and they increased the interest rates, it was from like 13 to 18%. Well, we went from like 0% and we're going up to 4.5% to 5%. So if you look at it and then you look at the cost of living in general and housing, that's substantial. And you can feel it and you can already see it, and it's in the media as far as what's happening. We have a lot of connections in the real estate market. And so you're starting to see inventory rise, some price drops because of the interest rates doubling from last year. They were 2.75 to 3, and now they've jumped up over 7. They're back under 7. So they're fluctuating around that. So your buying power from going from 3% to 7% interest rate on a 30-year fixed mortgage, that's substantial. That's huge. And so we're seeing all of these things happen along with big companies in different sectors now announcing layoffs. And HP, Amazon, Peloton, Wells Fargo, Tesla, Redfin, Nordstrom's, Gap, Warner Brothers, Ford, Apple, Groupon, Shopify, Walmart, Remax, Carvana. So it's not just isolated in one sector. And so you're starting to see the dominoes in these different sectors, and how deep is it going to go? How wide is it going to go?
Well, and one of the things that you've even mentioned when these are our 10:30 at night conversations after we put the kids to bed. And you had made this comment that these aren't just even the seasonal jobs, right? These are corporate
jobs.
positions.
Walmart corporate jobs. The Wells Fargo, obviously within the lending sector, you're starting to see big layoffs. Redfin, Zillow backing out of their iBuying program, the Redfin backing away from their buying program. I think Zillow saw what was going to happen and they got out last year, and I believe they were able to sell all of them to a big hedge fund.
So what is this telling us? This is what I love. I mean, I do appreciate the hours and hours and hours that you have spent here, and then, you know, you start to dissect it for me. But can you what is that telling us when we see all of those pieces means what?
Well, if you look at, let's isolate a couple of them. So if you look at the student loans, if the economy was that good and people were financially in a good place, there should be no reason not to have people to start making their loan payments again.
So what this is implying is that we're not good.
We're not as good as being projected as far as where we're at.
Okay.
And there again, on the flip side, and most people probably don't, but if you listen to Jerome Powell and the Fed meetings that he says he's looking at unemployment. Because our employment has been strong as far as the available work available for people has been really strong. So he's looking at that. He's looking for unemployment to go up. He's also looking, and he said it in his last meeting, that he's looking for a correction in real estate. So he's pressing into the interest rates to have real estate pull back. Every market, we're going to talk general, so you really have to look at your market, because it's a national, but then you have state and then you have sub-markets in those states. Some are going to do okay, and some are not going to do good at all.
Yeah.
And they will have 15, 20, 25% pullback in price. And what that means, if you think about people that bought a house the last couple years, and if they didn't put any money down, and they did an FHA loan of 3.5%, or or a 5% conventional loan, or they put minimal down, let's say, and the market pulls back 10%, they're underwater in their mortgage. And so the big topic of conversation is inventory is low. It was low, and it's on the rise. Most people that don't need to sell won't sell because they don't have to. They've got most people refinanced, or they bought the house and they can weather the storm. And so they don't need to sell. And so, but as you have unemployment rise, what's going to happen? You're going to have people that need to sell because they don't have a job anymore. Okay. And so with that, then it becomes kind of a race to the bottom. Or a race to price. So
what about the thought process around, though? Well, we're just readjusting to, you know, pre-COVID numbers, right? Because we did see over these last couple of years, sectors have shot up an area, right? Well, again, we're closest to the real estate market, so we have seen that. But things have gone, people are just trying to keep up with a level of growth and momentum, and right. And so then you hear some, they're like, you know, we're just readjusting to get back to, you know, where we were before. What are all these things tell you in relationship to a statement like that?
Yeah, and I would say there's market cycles. There's real estate market cycles, there's stock market cycles, and you have to look at it just like what the Fed said, inflation is transitory. It wasn't transitory. And so now it's out of control. It's at a 40-year high. And, you know, the stock market gets excited when did we peak out a couple months ago, and the last CPI print came out at like 7.7, and the stock market rallies because it's excited because what the Fed is doing is working to a certain extent. They're trying to curve demand. And so it's supply demand. When you have less demand for products, those prices naturally are going to come down.
So if you feel like you're sitting here listening to Travis and you have one of two thought processes that go through your head, I want to affirm that you are not alone in this. My first is, number one, he's dumbing this down really well so I can understand it. So if you're sitting there going, man, I feel like I actually can understand an industry that I've never really understood before. Me too, because you do that. There's something that I hear you say that I'm like, you're making it sound way simpler than it is. So you do a really good job of dumbing it down. But then, and I told you this last night, is we're like rehearsing all things that you've seen and are noticing. And I went, okay, what does that mean for me today? You know, the person that's like totally hear you. And I'm not suggesting that we're done looking at all of the pieces that you're talking about. But for me, raising babies, building my business, right? Trying to make some decisions based upon the future, right? Like kind of trying to like get out of the hole of 2020. What does that mean for me?
What does it mean for you?
I was like, Travis, what am I supposed to do next?
It can mean so many different things. And backing up kind of, it's a pendulum. So I don't believe it's just going to correct, or stop. So it was transitory and, the inflation was up and then it's just going to come back down and level out and everything is going to be, the way it was. Mm-hmm. I think you are going to have some kind of swing to the other side.
Sure.
And you're starting to see it. And that's why we bring this up is that it's just being aware and being prepared and not scared in the context of like, you're going to start to hear more and more things on the media, which can be confusing and create kind of a fear inside of you. And that's what we're ultimately talking about and what we're doing in preparation to ride the wave.
Totally. So let's now start breaking some of this down. So based upon all the things that you see happening and I see happening, whether it's on a global scale or just to your point, right, in certain markets, right, things are shifting, times are changing, whether we're finding our equilibrium or we're going to see, the next recession, anywhere in between. I think the idea here is that we want to equip you with the tools to ride the wave. Mm-hmm. So to the point at the beginning of this, when we talked about riding the wave, Bethany Hamilton, we want you to be able to ride the wave with confidence because to your point, you're aware and prepared. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that's the goal here is be aware and be prepared, right? Because just like us, and I love that you mentioned that, we didn't know it at the time, but we built our first business at the beginning of the recession, right? It was 2008. We were too stupid to know anything different. We were already broke. So at some level, we were like, let's give it a try. Like,
go all in.
Everyone's like, what are you doing getting into real estate? Well, we hit the market spot on, right? And there's story after story, whether it's Airbnb, right? They're a story of that, or Warby Parker or Netflix are companies who found their niche in recessions. Mm-hmm. So I think that speaks to the fact that there's always potential. And you've said this, I think you got it from someone, so you have to correct me, but you say money is never leaving, it's just exchanging hands, right? Mm-hmm. It's just moving. And so today our goal with this is, number one, we want to create some awareness of what's going on behind the scenes, whether people are really showcasing this or mentioning it or putting the pieces together. But then two is to start to speak to how do you actually be prepared?
Yeah. And let me just say this, because you hear a disclaimer. None of this is financial advice. We're just talking about what we're seeing and what we're doing. You need to do your own due diligence and research, but hopefully we help you to maybe rethink some things that did work and that you're starting to see maybe aren't working, or you're starting to see the shift and start to take action now, because you have time to take action to either reposition yourself in the same industry or to gain a new skill that next year you can utilize in, the new market conditions that are going to present themselves.
So I think what we're speaking to when we think about the wave is that all of the pieces look for I don't want to say the first time, so correct me in finding me maybe a better word, but there's a lot of sectors, a lot of industries where we see it's crumbling, right? Yeah. So we've got student loans, you've got credit cards, you've got auto, you've got inflation, you've got the interest rates, you've got layoffs, you've got housing, it is a perfect storm of a lot of different sectors, right? That are starting to kind of all come to the surface that we're not feeling now, but the energy, it's happening. Things are shifting.
It's definitely shifting.
Okay.
Yep. And you got to look at it from a there again, just like Bethany and the wave kind of analogy, like you got to start to move before you see it, because sometimes it is too late.
Totally.
And so now it's time to get educated. And this is a market cycle. There again, it's just one of them. They don't repeat themselves, but they tend to rhyme. And so there's different things that you can look at. Just like, I'll give you a few examples and then we can kind of go on a few things that we're doing. You look at the stock market. The stock market started to fall, in January. and has kind of slowly fallen and had these, decent sized rallies and then fallen further and then a little bit more of a rally. We're currently in the end of November 2022, we are in a little bit of a rally. And you can call it a dead cat bounce, you can call it a relief rally, but we're waiting, on the CPI for December. We're waiting on the Fed to say what they're going to do. But historically, the market doesn't bottom when the Fed is still tightening, increasing interest rates. And now what they did in 2020 was called QE, which is quantitative easing. They were putting money in the system. That's why you saw, and dropping interest rates. That's why you saw everything explode. Stock market at an all-time high. Housing blew up because the interest rates were so low. Money was cheap, easy to get. Now they're taking money out of the system, QT, quantitative tightening, and increasing interest rates. So the stock market will go down more. It's a matter of time. And so you can make money when the stock market goes down or up. Real estate, you have to change your strategy or your approach. Because if we do enter into a time where some people aren't going to have the equity to be able to sell, there's different creative strategies that you can use to buy and sell houses, even in a market that is starting to be upside down.
Sure. Yep. So can we speak to a little bit of, okay, well, how do we position ourselves then? So some of these things, immediately, if you're listening, you're like, man, I could really be impacted for the good or the bad. Some people I can envision are sitting there going, I'm not in the stock market and I'm not in real estate. And right, I'm barely getting by as is, right? Like I'm just trying to keep up with my monthly expenses, So I think that there's this whole range of where people might be at as they listen to this. So I think, can we start to kind of dive into, now that we foresee a wave coming, what does that mean? What do we think? What do you think? How are we approaching this year?
Yeah, so I think, and we've been doing it for quite some time, and these are just some of the strategies that we have implemented just as a defensive. And then you have your offense. And so our defense, some of the things that we do is we stay out of debt, credit card debt and other debt that is tied to interest rates. Because unfortunately, with interest rates and the credit card debt at an all-time high, those interest rates are variable, tied to what's going on with the interest rates increasing. So some of these individuals with these, they're going to be 20% plus on interest, just on interest.
Just interest, yeah.
And so what we do is try to stay out of debt, have a cash reserve, and then also once you have some kind of cash reserve for emergency fund, to have some gold and silver, physical gold and silver.
God's money.
God's money.
Our kids run around the house saying, God's money.
I took that from Robert Kiyosaki, but it is. It's been money since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
And so silver right now is cheap relative to gold. And so it's easy to buy a few coins, but first to have some cash.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that we do is have some food, food and water, 1 to 3 months, just as a backup. There again, you don't know. I'm not saying doom and gloom and it's going to be horrific and awful, but we also didn't know what from the end of 2019 into 2020, what that was going to look like either.
Totally.
And so now we're just taking the approach of like, how do we just have a certain amount of defense in place that no matter what happens, we can sit back and look at it and say, okay, we have a little bit of time to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, and I think that the quote that, I think it was Bob Harrison that says, it's offense sells the tickets, but defense wins the game. And I think that's really true, right? Because I think that if I look back in our marriage, you have been knocking on the door of our defense game. And I love offense. Let's take,
so
and
true.
you do like,
so
you like
true.
to travel and adventure, and I'm not saying it's all that, but I love the game of offense. I love to take the risks. I love to go there, which again, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I think is coming for 2023, which is super offensive. And I have loved when we finally just went both. Like, so what we're speaking of today is we are not doom and gloom. Travis and I are not, what do they call you? But you just put your head in the sand and what do they call those types of people? The doom and gloomers, or you know what I'm saying? I can't think of the title, but we're not that. Preppers, that's the word. We are prepared, right? Be aware, be prepared. So in theory, defense will win the game, but offense is going to sell the tickets. These things that we do are in alignment with our defense part of the game.
Yep, 100%. And then I think with that, you know, a big thing, and we're big on it, is just mental and physical health. What are you doing currently, or have been doing for quite some time, that you know that you shouldn't be doing or you shouldn't be eating, but do the things like what we were joking around at the beginning as far as New Year's resolutions. Now's the time to start. Don't wait until after December or after the holidays. Start moving your body now and start working towards whatever those goals that you have, if you have them. If you don't, and you're already fit and you eat good and all that, great. Like, you're there.
Well, and I think I just want to speak a little bit to this, as I was reflecting on this point. I have been on the side of, I would say, needing alcohol. And I've also been on the side of my intake of sugar was higher. I've also been on the side of excessive working out. I've been on both sides of this equation and have spent hours and a lot of money learning what fuels my body. And I am huge advocate of so much of our mental crisis, not all of, I'm not going to say that it's not all of, but so much of our mental crisis is tied up in what we're eating. It's unreal.
Yep.
Right. I mean, it really is. I mean, I've leaned in, and you've seen me with my nutritionist, and really learning what is making my brain literally jump wires and what is making my emotions out of whack. And it has come down to two things: my supplements and my food. And so I am a huge proponent of saying that though this doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal, when you're on the other side of mental clarity and physically feeling really good and really strong at a sustainable level, it does wonders for your day-to-day.
Yeah.
It just wonders for your parenting, wonders for your business. Like you don't know what you're missing until you're on the other side of clarity.
Well, and I see it like real time when we have a baby and you're breastfeeding, because what you put in your body is being broken down and given to our children.
Yep.
And you see that with other parents, and they're drinking Coke or eating fast food or whatever, and their babies, their stomachs are upset, or they're colicky, they're not sleeping through the night, or whatever that is. And it's a direct, I mean, you are the source.
For sure.
And so if you're not feeding yourself, so you do it not necessarily just when we have babies, but I can see that.
Yeah.
Like, thank God, none of our babies, because of the way you eat, they don't have those problems.
Totally. And I think that this time around, I mean, I remember a week 4 after having Roxy, some people will go, well, you were probably just feeling postpartum. And I think that was a huge component, but I literally felt like there's no way I'm going to be able to sustain this. My brain felt like it was twisting. I felt like an emotional roller coaster. I mean, then you're kind of watching what people are putting on social media and the mental crisis in the world. And I'm in my head, I'm like, well, then now I have postpartum. And I kind of started to spin for a couple of days, and I'm looking at 5 kids in the business and all of the things, and this next year, and a huge investment in our business with hiring and all these things. And I'm thinking, I'm going to lose my mind like everybody else. Like, I'm going to lose my mind. And when I did sit down with my nutritionist and she walked me through what was actually going on and what I would need to do and take away and supplement, 2 weeks later, I kid you not, I didn't change anything else on paper. I didn't change how much levels of to-dos or the business or the kids or you or anything. I just changed what I was eating and the supplements I was taking. And in 2 weeks, the level of clarity and strength and kind of that like momentum was completely back. Like the clarity was unreal.
Yep.
So I know that this point seems too simple to work. It is that simple to work. And it's a huge part of like being able to approach your day with such a level of clarity that your emotions aren't tied to what's going on around us, that it's not tied to just because of my food intake that I'm either eating too much or not enough or all the things. Like, it's a game changer.
Yeah. And on that, I would, I could hear some people, it's hard, or I don't know, or it's confusing, or I don't have the resources, or I don't have the money. And we totally understand that. We didn't either. And it's little steps at a time. Like when you go to the extreme, we know people that go to the extreme from not eating healthy and doing some things, not
75-day hard,
not working out, and then to the extreme of like something for a certain amount of time. And when you put a time frame on like a workout program, it's not a lifestyle change. You've got to look at it. No, here's the goals I want to get, and here's the things I'm going to start to do, and I'm going to do them. I'm not going to do 30 days or 90 days because you'll go all out for the 30, 90-day workout program. And that's why so many, especially New Year's resolutions in the fitness realm, die off.
Yeah.
It's not sustainable.
It's not.
So what I want to say on that though specifically is do a self audit. And we talk about this quite a bit. Like do a food audit. What do I eat? How do I feel? Are there certain things that I don't sleep very well, or I feel jittery, or my stomach or whatever? And then do a Google search of the foods that you eat and see potentially the side effects and link them to maybe how you're feeling.
For sure.
And then do another Google search on different foods that you can eat that are cost effective.
Yeah.
That will feed your body and nourish it, and not, the sugars and the caffeines. And I mean, if you really read the labels when you go to a grocery store, half of them you can't pronounce.
For sure.
And if you just buy the box based off of the marketing and it's saying like, nutritionist and sugar free, well, what are they putting in there to make it taste so good? Like
it's a cancer bar.
Yeah, you just gotta. So don't make it more complicated. That's what I'm saying. Any of the stuff that we're talking about, like, don't make it more complicated. Just get started, and with one action that you can start to do, if any of these resonate with you. And the other thing too is, a few other things is, one, protection. And that can mean different things for different people. And then community. Community is huge in a time, whether it's thriving or not. Yeah. Being in a good, solid community with like-minded people that can not only encourage you, but challenge you. And I think you've got to have those people around you, not just going into 2023, but just in general.
Yeah. And I think, to your point earlier, right, all of these things, stay out of debt, cash reserve, food, water, mental, physical health, protection, or community, just start, right? So if all you can do is kick the debt on one card, kick the debt on one card. If all you can do is stock up for 1 month of just some extra food, stock up for
1 week.
Right. Like just start a little bit, right? If all you can do is, when you're ordering Costco, is add a few additional things in your cart, just start there, right? If all you have is one person in your community, great, lean in harder. Like the idea is and then let that compound effect take over. And again, are we prepping for something? No, we're just being prepared, because we did watch, right, 2020 hurt too many people unexpectedly. Most people had these things in place. We probably wouldn't have felt this volatility and complete freak out mode, because in theory, okay, I'm prepared to kind of let things fall where they may. That's what we're suggesting, right? And then once you have the defense in place, then you get to play offense. Which, can we talk about that for the last 5 minutes?
Yes.
And I can't wait to get to the offense. This is where you get to ride the wave, right? So again, the idea here is there's this awareness where you look up and you see all the pieces even that Travis is talking about, and you're like, oh, this is interesting. The energy is building. Things are shifting. The market looks different. People are wanting different things. Like, you can tell the energy is moving and shifting. We're going to ride out. We're going to start getting prepared. Just like this analogy, we're going to ride out, we're going to get prepared, we're going to do what most people won't so we can have what most people can't, and we're going to ride out, and then we get to ride the wave.
And
right?
There again, if nothing happens, you're
still
just
progressing.
in a better spot. And I just want to make a quick note before we start to talk about that is, there's a lag time, and that's why we're talking about it. The things that we shared at the beginning of what we're seeing is there's a lag time to actually really when it hits the economy. Just like in 2020, you didn't see the skyrocket in the home prices right off the bat.
Totally.
It took a while.
Yep.
Then they peaked out at the end of 2021-ish.
Yeah. And you saw that back in 2008, right? Like things were happening in 2006, things were happening in 2007, right? And as you and I even stepped into it in 2008, that's we started to just start seeing it. But things were happening leading up to 2008, 2009, when it was like the worst of the worst.
100%. Yeah. And I just watched the movie again, The Big Short, and that's exactly what it is. Like, when the mainstream media and everyone knows about something, sometimes it's too late.
It's too late.
And so you're starting to see, so if you put these pieces together and say, okay, if this gets worse, what could happen? Or if some of these things play out, or in the past, what happened that were similar to what is happening now, and what industries or what marketplace or what are people going to need? What skill could I have to bring to the marketplace to go and serve more people?
For sure. And I think that this is where we start playing offense, is that there is money to be made in any market. There is opportunity in every market. There is value to give in every market. There is hope to bring in every market. There is new businesses in every market. And so the opportunity here is ripe, in my opinion. And in one of the videos that I found myself, I had a theme for what I was talking about in midway through my video. And I talk about kind of what I thought was happening in 2023 is I think that 2023 is the year of the dream, which basically means it's going to be the year where the people who are aware and prepared are going to start to see something so much deeper within them, or they're going to have a belief in a business or an industry or a model or a value play to this world, that those are going to be the people that will soar and catch the wave. Not because we see what's going on around us, right? Or the fear or the, oh my gosh, the student loan payments, the credit card. Yes, all those things are real. They are happening. They're not happening, right? It's even like Netflix after Blockbuster. Netflix wasn't going to go, oh, there's never going to be movies played ever again in our lifetime. Netflix just went, I wonder if there's a better way to do this, right? And so I think what's happening in my mind is that it's actually positioning us as dreamers to stand up and to be accounted for around this idea that do not look at the past. Don't even look at what's going on around us or what mainstream is saying. Actually, I want you to start building a world based upon revelation, based upon potential, based upon what God's called you to do or the skills he's placed within you. That is what 2023 is all about, is people who are resolved and convicted and connected to the dream, connected to something so much bigger that it pulls them through the eye of the needle and allows them to ride the wave.
And how do they do that?
Oh man, how do you do that? How you dream?
well, yeah. Like what's one thing or two things that people, if dream can mean something, you say the word, and it can mean a lot of different things to different people. And I think you've shared it before as far as like what the interpretation is when you say it's the year of the dreamer. Well, a lot of people dream but don't do anything with it.
Totally. No, when I say dream, what I mean, and in the book I write this definition, is that dreaming is not what you think it is, that it's actually the ability to go so deep, almost to a totally different level of awareness, and you're able to bring a world that you don't see with your physical eye. You're able to get in touch with that world and bring it to the world around us. So what I mean is that this isn't going to be something that's going to make you feel good. It's the thing that's going to make you be good. It's the thing that you were purposed for from the very beginning of time, to do, to be, to give, and to have in this lifetime. And it is our job to bring that to the world, right? And that could come in the form, all of us have different visions or ideas or strategy, right? Like this isn't just about the, oh, well, I'm not that creative. No, we actually all have different dreams and they come to us in very different ways. Like you see strategy, I see big picture. They're both dreams, right? Like you see strategy around how a business could look different and feel different and run different. I see vision of how a world could look different for people. Those are the dreams. So for instance, if you're seeing something that's not working at a micro or macro level, then what I would tell you is lean in. You are the solution, right? Like you are part of the solution. If you're seeing a problem within your church, if you're seeing a problem within the industry, if you're seeing a problem within how emails are being sent, if you're seeing a problem within the education system, if you're seeing a problem within credit card or loan payments or auto repo or inflation, like you're part of the solution. And if you can then take that dream and start building strategy and get people around you and understand the pieces that you don't understand, and you start to put chips on the table and go, I'm all in for this. Like this is something that the world's going to need. That's where you start to play offense, even though the world might say one thing and you go, no, I can't not do this, That's what this year is going to be about. Because Airbnb and Netflix and Trader Joe's and the guy on The Big Short and all of these, they were the same thing. The rest of the world would have said, what are you doing? Like, Travis and Julia.
It's time to pull back.
Yeah, it's time to pull back.
Down.
Why are you getting into real estate in 2008? And Airbnb, nobody does this. And Netflix, Blockbuster's going out, don't know that this is the right thing to do. You know what I mean? Like, it's that rub. Bethany Hamilton, why are you writing out, there's no waves out there ever? And the girl's like, you couldn't convince me because I'm so in touch with something else. I'm not looking around at the world to give me something that God's already put on the inside of me. And I can't not catch the wave because I can see it before seeing it.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. And if you're one of the people that has, potentially are going to lose your job, it could be a perfect setup because there's so many people, they don't love what they do anyway. And this could be one of the best opportunities for you to reset the
trajectory.
Yeah, that of your life. Like to look at it and say, if you happen to lose your job or they're offering you a severance package, if you choose to now, as opposed to maybe getting laid off later, like you look at that and say, okay, like I don't even like this industry. I don't like this job. This could give me a runway to do everything that you just said and change my life in the future.
For sure. And I think that this is why, some of these last podcasts, I encourage you to go back and listen to them because we were talking so much about just this mental resiliency, because I think that so much of this is going to be the mindset, and it's also going to be, what am I paying attention to, right? Fear in my mind is just misguided faith. That's all that it is. I'm just putting my attention on the wrong thing. Right? So I could lose my job tomorrow. And as you always say, is this happening to me or is this happening for me? That's a mindset. That's a choice, right? Is saying, okay, the world is falling apart, or is it falling into place? And it's just really a matter of truly perspective and what I'm actually putting my faith in versus my fear. And I think ultimately we have to remember again that God knows from the beginning to the end. And he is not in control of all things, but he is in charge of all the things. And so when we start to look at that and go, man, this is an opportunity. Things are changing and that doesn't have to be bad. Markets are crumbling and that doesn't have to be bad, right? Markets are changing. That doesn't have to be bad. It's now just, am I positioned on the defense, right? Am I in tune and aware with the energy? Am I positioned on the defense? And am I ready to go on my offensive strategy? Now, more than ever before, the world needs people who are prepared and ready on the offense to bring heaven to earth, to make the world a better place, to do something different in all of these markets, to stand up and be accounted for, to do the things that God has put in their hearts that we put on the shelf because we were busy, or put on the shelf because of disappointment, or we had to pay the bills. Now is the time to tap back into each and every one of those dreams and to go, if not now, when? And if not, who? If not you, who? That's where I think we're going.
If not now, when? I mean, that's the question that we always at Checks and Balance. Like there's two things that are guaranteed: death and taxes.
It's horrible.
It's a fact. And I guess taxes, there's strategies
for sure
you can get around that, but with real estate. So, but what I'm saying ultimately, like you only have so much time, and I think that we always put it off, and we have been there in the past of when we get there, then we'll do that, and then we get there, and then we're like, well, when we get there, then we'll do that, and you're like, there's no perfect time.
Yeah.
So there again, maybe you have an awesome job, a stable job. Now is the time, but you want to do something else. Maybe now is the time to prepare. Yeah. So if something happens, you're already prepared. Yeah. But if nothing happens, then you prepared and you can go in to your employer and say, I quit.
Yeah. And I think, again, when you go back to the point of community, Travis and I are on a checks and balance right now. We will look in every conversation, we're talking defense and offense. So we'll talk about, here's what we think is coming. Then we always, are we prepared enough, right, to continue to ride that wave? Or if worst case scenario, or if this industry or these things or anything that could totally impact our mental, emotional, financial house, if you will, We're constantly going, is our defensive game on point? And then what else offensively can we be doing? What is the world going to need? What is the message that we have? What are the resources? What are our talents? What is our business position to do? What is our family position to do? So I would encourage you in closing that the wave is coming. We're not here to speculate on how big or when or any of the things, but as things shift and change, our hope in today's podcast is that you are positioning yourself to have a greater level of awareness, to be prepared defensively, and to also get on the offense, right? To actually put some chips on the table, to take some risks towards the things that God has given you, to actually run unapologetically towards the dreams that you have to see your faith, your family, your career, your community a better place. Now is equally just as much of a time to be doing that. Agree.
Well said.
So this is why we were excited that you guys joined us for this epic, long, deep, rich, just scratching the surface conversation.
Just scratching the surface. Maybe we'll do a series on it.
Should we just do a series? We'll break that up a little bit for you. But in the meantime, we hope that this finds you well, living big, dreaming real, and we'll see you next time on the Dream On podcast.
On behalf of both of us, thank you for listening to another episode of Dream On. Don't forget to visit our website, The Dream Factory & Co., for all the show notes and other tools and resources to get you unstuck, clear, and helping you reprogram your thoughts and beliefs so that you can live out your dreams with a community that supports and challenges you. Until next time, dream on.